You've probably heard that eggshells are garden gold, a free source of calcium that can save your tomatoes from blossom and rot. But here's the catch. Simply crushing them in your hand and throwing them in the dirt might take years to break down. Today I'm going to show you how to process the eggshells correctly, so that way you can use them in your garden this season. And I'm going to give you 3 different ways on how to apply them to your garden. So before I show you how to use these eggshells in the garden, why would you want to use them in the garden? What are the reasons? What are the benefits to have saving your eggshells and using them, putting them out in your garden? The first one is going to be, it's great to enrich your soil with. The number one thing it'll put into your soil would be calcium. Calcium prevents blossom end rot. This will help out with your peppers and your tomatoes from getting blossom end rot. Blossom end rot is whenever the bottom of the fruit starts turning black or brown. You'll see that with a lot of times with tomatoes. Now, this is not the calcium deficiency is not always the cause of blossom end rot, but this will help out with preventing blossom end rot. It's one of the things that you need to do to prevent blossom end rot. Number 2, cellular strength. The calcium that the eggshells will provide will get your plant a lot stronger. It's kind of like your bones in your body. It'll keep the plant a lot stronger, more resistant to the heat, more resistant to the wind, more all those environmental aspects. The plant will overall be better off because it will have a better cellular structure. 3, the calcium carbonate in the soil will over time neutralize your soil. So if you have a very acidic soil, you got a very basic soil, or alkaline soil, you can put more eggshells in there, and that'll get things pushed back to the middle, more or less to a 7. That will take quite a bit of time to happen, but it is one of those things that over time, the more that you use over time, the better off your pH is going to be, and it's going to be a more balanced pH. The other thing that eggshells are known for pest deterrents. Now, a lot of people say you can take those eggshells and you can crush them up, and they'll have like sharp, jagged edges. Slugs and snails don't like crawling over those sharp, jagged edges. A lot of worms don't like going across those as well. So that's something that you can kind of think about whenever you're sprinkling those out. They could be kind of a pest deterrent. I really don't put too much faith in that because I don't know how often I see slugs in my garden. I also don't see very many snails in my garden. I'm kind of lucky with that. Eggshells also, if you crush them up and put them into your soil, they will add aeration and drainage to your soil and make your soil a little bit fluffier. That type of material will keep the things from compacting so much. If you have heavy clay soils, we do have a lot of heavy clay soils around this area, that mud and the stuff, it just kind of compacts. If you have eggshells in there, it's not going to be as compact. It'll allow aeration, which the roots of your plants will love, and also allow drainage, so your roots are not sitting in a bunch of water all the time, a bunch of wet area, swampy area. And finally, eggshells will benefit your composting. If you have a composter, you put those eggshells in there, those worms, or even a worm bin, those worms will love to go through there. They like to use that grit that's in there from the eggshells. Get those crushed up into little fine pieces. Those eggshells will help those worms digest all the goodies and then poop out even better goodies. So use those eggshells in your compost if you can. So the number one way to use eggshells in your garden so that benefits you for this season is you got to get those eggshells and you got to save them. You got to get them crushed up into a very, very fine powder. Now, there's a couple things that you want to do with these to make sure that they're deemed safe. One, rinse your eggshells if you can. You don't want to risk the salmonella being out there. You want to keep those eggshells pretty clean. So go ahead and rinse them off in the sink. And then what I would typically do is I would take them and lay them across a pan, maybe crush them up a little bit, but lay them across a pan, put them in the oven and bake them at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes. And what this will do is it'll take it and it'll kind of break down the eggshell just a little bit, but it'll also make sure the eggshell is completely dry and there's no moisture left inside the eggshells at all. This is going to be very, very important because what we're going to do next is we're going to take those eggshells out. We're going to let them cool off before we do this. We're going to throw them and then we're going to put them into a grinder, like a coffee grinder or I got an old shake grinder, like a protein shake grinder, something that you can grind to grind this into a fine powder. Put them all in there, grind them up. Once you get them all ground up, it should be a really, really fine powder. and then that powder will be broken down even quicker than if you would just take the eggshells and throw them out into the garden. To use that powder, essentially just go out to your garden when you're planting your tomatoes, your peppers. When you're digging your hole, at the bottom of the hole, sprinkle some of that stuff in there. That should be available to the plants this season. Now, it may not be available right away, but as those plants grow, that stuff's going to be absorbed by the soil, and then finally it'll be absorbed by the roots. And then that should help out with your tomatoes, with your peppers. Method number 2 that you can use to get it so that you can use it this year is by taking those eggshells, put them into a jar of vinegar, and just let them sit. You'll notice that the calcium in them will start reacting and will start bubbling a little bit. Basically, you're going to be making a tea here. Let that sit for about 24 hours, and then after that is done, go ahead and dilute it. You want to dilute it heavily with water, like a 1-to-20 ratio, and then you could just go ahead and water your plants with it. Use it like a fertilizer. It's kind of like a comfrey tea. It's kind of like a compost tea. You can just sprinkle it around your plants, and that should help with the absorption of that calcium right away. And the third way that you can use it in your garden is you can definitely just take it and just kind of sprinkle it over the top of your garden, and then over time, you'll have that stuff just disintegrated. Now, I started doing this probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, probably about 5 years ago. I started sprinkling this around my garden. I take the eggshells, and actually, how the lazy guy that I am, sometimes I would just take them and I would toss them out there. And then whenever I was out there working, I would just kind of hammer them down, break them up. So over time, those things have broken down. So yes, that calcium does get used up over time, but if I'm sprinkling them out there every so often, and it takes a while for that stuff to break down, I have gotten a cycle to where I'm always adding that calcium to the garden. So I don't have to really take the time to do the powder. I do every once in a while, maybe to put some powder in there if I got a prize tomato that I want to try to grow, or if I noticed the last year that I had a lot of deficiencies with blossom end rot. But I tell you what, a lot of my deficiencies with blossom end rot have been because of watering issues. But a lot of that though, if I just take the time just to get the eggshells, save them, throw them in my indoor composting bin, and then I throw them out in the garden, usually over time I'll have enough calcium that has broken down that every year I'm adding another year for something down the road. So that's another way that you can use those eggshells out in the garden. Definitely can use them in your worm bins. I use them in garden worm bins. You could put them in your compost pile as well. Same thing there. It takes a while for them to break down, but once they get broken down, when you put that compost over your bed, you should see the benefits of those. So you kind of create a cycle there. Tell me, do you have garden gold powder that you're using in there? It's not garden gold unless you're using brown eggs. Maybe it's garden brown, garden white. Do you have any calcium powder that you're using with your garden? Leave me a comment down below. How are you using eggs in your garden? Have you ever thought about using eggs in your garden? I do get a little lazy, but like I said, there's nothing wrong with being lazy with it. You can also make some really good powder, some really fast-acting stuff if you needed to. If you like this content, stay tuned because we're going to provide you with many more ideas just like this of free things around the house that you can use to mend your soil with. And over time, you'll be growing big, beautiful plants. Click that subscribe button down below, give me a thumbs up, and like I said, leave me a comment. How are you using eggshells in your garden? Cheers, everybody. God bless.